September 12, 1943, 7:05 a.m., Gran Sasso Plateau, Italy. 10 gliders slice through frozen air toward a mountaintop fortress. Inside, German paratroopers, the Green Devils, clutch rifles their own Führer banned. A weapon that fires like a machine gun, shoots like a sniper rifle, but weighs less than either. Built in secret, tested never. Designed for a war that hasn't started yet, and fielded in a war already collapsing. If it jams, if they fail here, Mussolini dies in captivity. Italy fragments. The Axis loses its southern anchor months ahead of schedule. The Mediterranean becomes an Allied lake, and every man gripping an FG-42 knows this. The rifle in his hands was forged behind Hitler's back, smuggled onto this glider without permission, and may fail on the first trigger pull. One malfunction, one seized bolt, one cracked reserved. Everything ends. They're falling toward a fortress defended by 200 Italian guards, carrying a weapon that exists in defiance of orders, built for a future war while this one collapses around them. The gliders drop lower. Wind screams, wings shudder. What happens when the most advanced weapon in the war arrives in the hands of men who were never supposed to have it, 20 years too early and months too late? What happens when the most advanced weapon in the war arrives too late to change it? 2 years earlier, May 20th, 1941, Crete. German paratroopers fall from Junkers Ju-52s in the largest airborne assault in history, over 22,000 men. The mission: seize the island in 48 hours. They drop carrying pistols, nothing else. Their rifles, Kar 98K bolt actions, fall separately in steel canisters marked by color-coded parachutes. The doctrine is simple: land, sprint to the canisters, arm yourself, fight. It fails within minutes. British and Commonwealth forces spot the canisters first, capture them, smash them open, take the rifles. German paratroopers hit the ground and die with sidearms in their hands. They're slaughtered in olive groves, on airstrips, in ditches still wrapped in parachute silk. Within 72 hours, over 4,000 Fallschirmjäger are dead or wounded. Elite units, trained for years, blooded in Norway and Belgium, are shattered in 3 days. Hitler declares airborne operations too costly. The paratroopers, Germany's most lethal rapid response force, are grounded for the rest of the war. Survivors don't blame the enemy, they blame the doctrine. "We jumped into hell holding pistols," one sergeant writes. "Our rifles were in British hands before we touched ground." The rage is immediate. The demand is impossible. They want a weapon that doesn't exist. Rifle range, submachine gun speed, light enough to carry during a jump. A weapon that violates every compromise other nations accept. The British use Sten guns, cheap, fast to build, lethal only at close range. The Americans carry M1 Garands, powerful, accurate, but heavy and semi-automatic only. The Soviets flood battlefields with PPSH submachine guns, devastating in trenches, useless beyond 100 meters. The Fallschirmjäger demand all three in one package. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring hears the plea. He knows what it means: building a rifle that defies physics, economics, and battlefield reality. He also knows the Führer will never approve it. Hitler has made his priorities brutally clear. Mass production, proven designs, no experiments, no distractions. Resources go to tanks, aircraft, submarines, not to rifles that require precision machining. Germany can barely afford. Göring authorizes the project anyway, not through Wehrmacht channels, not with Hitler's knowledge. In 1942, Rheinmetall Borsig receives a clandestine contract. The specifications read like science fiction. 7.92 by 57 mm Mauser, full rifle power, selective fire, semi and full automatic under 10 pounds magazine fed, parachute drop, survivable, combat ready on landing. Engineers stare at the requirements. One scribbles in his notes, "They want a weapon for a war that hasn't been invented yet." Full-power rifle cartridges generate massive recoil. Automatic fire in that caliber normally requires a 25-pound tripod-mounted machine gun. Shrinking it to under 10 pounds means something breaks, either the gun or the man firing it. And it has to function in mud, dust, snow, sand, without jamming, without maintenance, under parachute impact and combat stress. It's a paradox wrapped in steel. But Crete haunts them. The image of paratroopers dying with empty hands. The knowledge that doctrine killed more men than enemy fire. The work begins. In secret, at night. In scattered workshops where official records will never find it. They're building a weapon behind their leader's back for soldiers their leader has already written off, for battles that may never come. The Green Devils survived Crete. Now they need something that can survive the next impossible mission. The first prototype explodes. A test gunner fires 3 rounds on full automatic. The bolt carrier shatters. Metal fragments tear through the receiver. The gunner's hand is shredded. Blood pools on the concrete firing range. Engineers start over. They switch to a rotating bolt, stronger, borrowed from Czech machine gun designs. It holds, barely. But now the rifle weighs 12 pounds. Too heavy. Paratroopers will drown in the air. They shave metal from the barrel, lighten the receiver, strip every unnecessary gram. The next test, 60 rounds continuous fire. The barrel glows cherry red. Paint blisters off the stock. The wood smokes. At round 61, exclamation mark, the barrel warps. The rifle is ruined. They add cooling vents, redesign the gas system. Now it clogs. Carbon buildup chokes the piston after 200 rounds. Engineers disassemble it to find the gas port sealed with burnt powder. They tune the gas pressure, widen the port. Test again. The recoil becomes uncontrollable. One test shooter suffers a cracked collarbone. Another develops a bruised shoulder so severe he can't lift his arm for a week. By mid-1942, the project is hemorrhaging resources Germany doesn't have. Each prototype requires precision machining, work done by skilled craftsmen being conscripted and sent to the Eastern Front. The rifle needs lightweight alloys, chromium, molybdenum, metals already rationed for tank armor and aircraft engines. Then, the bombers come. RAF night raids. US AAF daylight strikes. Factories burn. One workshop producing gas pistons is reduced to rubble. Engineers arrive to find their blueprints buried under collapsed walls. Production schedules shatter. Supply chains fragment. And then, the political hammer falls. Late 1942, Hitler reviews Wehrmacht procurement reports. He sees the FG-42 listed, experimental, expensive, behind schedule. His response is immediate. Halt all experimental small arms development. We need rifles we can build by the thousands, not toys built one at a time. The order comes down through command layers like a death sentence. Officially, the FG-42 is dead. But Goering intercepts it. He summons Rheinmetall engineers and Luftwaffe procurement officers to a guarded room. No minutes are taken, no records kept. His message is blunt. Continue, quietly. The army can fight with museum pieces if they want. The Luftwaffe arms its own. The project goes underground, literally. Production moves to basements, rural machine shops, dispersed facilities hidden from inspectors and bombers. Components are manufactured separately. No single worker sees the complete design. Barrels made in one town, receivers in another, bolts in a third. Assembly happens in guarded Luftwaffe depots at night, away from army eyes. The weapon evolves in shadows. Engineers refine the inner stock, placing it directly behind the barrel. Recoil channels straight into the shoulder. Muzzle rise disappears. It's a concept 15 years ahead of its time. The AK-47 will use it. The M16 will use it. In 1942, it's heresy. They add a side-mounted scope rail, a folding bipod, a 20-round magazine feeding from the left side, a spike bayonet beneath the barrel. Every feature is calculated. Every gram matters. Final weight, 9.9 pounds unloaded. On paper, it's a miracle of engineering. In reality, it's a nightmare to produce. Each rifle demands over 40 hours of precision machining. A Kar 98K takes 8 hours. A Soviet PPSH-41 takes 3. Cost per unit, 350 Reichsmarks. A standard infantry rifle costs 70. The revolutionary Sturmgewehr 44, being developed simultaneously in another secret program, costs 120. The FG-42 costs 5 times more than a standard rifle and 3 times more than Germany's other experimental weapon. By spring 1943, fewer than 2,000 exist. Hidden in armories. Issued to select units. Never officially acknowledged. Then, intelligence arrives. Mussolini has been overthrown. He's imprisoned in a mountain fortress, Hotel Campo Imperatore, Gran Sasso, central Italy. The new Italian government is negotiating surrender with the Allies. If he's not rescued, Italy collapses. German divisions in the south are cut off. The Mediterranean becomes an Allied lake. The Axis loses its southern anchor. Hitler demands immediate action. Otto Skorzeny, SS commando known for audacity bordering on madness, is given the mission. He requests the best soldiers Germany has. Goering offers the Fallschirmjäger, and then, quietly, something else. In a closed-door meeting, Goering leans forward. Arm them with the FG-42. Let this be the weapon's proof. Skorzeny hesitates. It's not approved. It's not even supposed to exist. Goering's smile is cold. Neither is failure. The rifles are pulled from hidden stockpiles, loaded onto trucks under tarps, delivered to an airfield south of Rome, where 108 paratroopers are preparing for a mission most won't survive. No paperwork, no official authority, no permission. Just crates of rifles built in defiance of orders, tested in secret, and now fielded in desperation. In war, sometimes the most dangerous gambles are the ones no one authorized. The FG-42 isn't a rifle. It's a gamble disguised as engineering. Most nations build weapons by accepting failure. The British know the Sten gun is crude, but it costs almost nothing and can be stamped out in hours. The Americans know the M1 Garand is heavy and slow to reload, but it's reliable enough to trust your life to. The Soviets know the PPSH-41 sprays bullets wildly, but it floods trenches with lead. Every military accepts compromise, range or weight. accuracy or firepower, simplicity or versatility. The FG-42 refuses to compromise. It attempts to be 3 weapons in one body: a sniper's rifle, a machine gunner's support weapon, and a paratrooper's survival tool. Making that work requires engineering brilliance bordering on obsession. The inline stock, taming the untamable. Traditional rifles mount the stock below the barrel. When you fire, physics takes over. Recoil drives the barrel upward. Muzzle climb. In automatic fire, it becomes catastrophic. The gun kicks skyward. Rounds spray uselessly into the air. The FG-42 places the stock directly behind the barrel. Recoil channels straight back into the shooter's shoulder. Muzzle rise vanishes. The sights stay on target. Automatic fire becomes controllable. It's a solution so elegant that decades later, the AK-47 will copy it. So will the M16. So will nearly every modern assault rifle. In 1943, it's revolutionary. It's also expensive, complex, and requires precision woodworking. Germany's collapsing industry can barely manage. The gas piston, violence under control. The FG-42 uses a long-stroke gas piston to cycle the action. When a round fires, expanding gases drive the piston backward, unlocking and cycling the bolt. The engineering challenge is brutal. Too much gas pressure and the rifle destroys itself. Too little and it fails to cycle. Engineers spend months tuning the gas port to perfection. Under sustained fire, it works flawlessly. In laboratory conditions. But introduce dust, carbon buildup, or poor quality ammunition, all guaranteed in combat, and the system becomes fragile, temperamental, deadly to rely on. The rotating bolt, strength at a cost. The bolt locks with rotating lugs, similar to a Mauser, but adapted for automatic fire. It's strong enough to handle full rifle cartridges, reliable enough to bet your life on. It's also a manufacturing nightmare. Each bolt requires precision machining and heat treatment, tolerances measured in thousandths of an inch. If a single contact is even slightly out of spec, the rifle jams, or worse, explodes. Mass production? Impossible. Germany doesn't have the capacity, the time, or the materials. The magazine. Function over familiarity. The 20-round magazine mounts on the left side. It keeps the rifle's profile low when firing prone, critical for paratroopers under fire. It also makes reloading awkward, unnatural, especially with cold fingers, especially with gloves, especially in the dark under incoming fire. Soldiers will complain. But the engineers don't design for comfort. They design for survival. The optics, turning riflemen into snipers. A side-mounted rail accepts a ZF-4 scope, 4x magnification, effective to 600 meters. For paratroopers used to submachine guns useless beyond 100 meters, it's transformative. Every soldier becomes a potential marksman. But scopes are fragile. They fog in mountain air. They crack on hard landings. They break when gliders smash into boulders. Many paratroopers will rip them off and trust iron sights instead. The capability exists. Reality kills it. The bipod and bayonet, medieval meets modern. An integrated bipod deploys in seconds, stabilizing the rifle for precision shots or sustained automatic fire. A spike bayonet folds beneath the barrel, brutal, functional, ancient. Together, these features create something unprecedented. A weapon that engages targets at 400 meters with sniper precision. suppresses positions with machine gun fire, and defends ground in close combat. On paper, it's perfect. In reality, it's a precision instrument being sent into hell. September 12, 1943. A commandeered villa south of Rome. 108 Fallschirmjäger stand in formation. Roughly half hold FG-42 rifles. The others carry MP-40 submachine guns and KAR-98K bolt actions. They know the mission: glider insertion, suppress guards, extract Mussolini, escape before reinforcements arrive. What they don't know, the rifles they're holding are illegal, that Hitler banned the project, that Göring defied direct orders to produce them, that every FG-42 on this mission represents insubordination at the highest levels of command. They don't know that if the rifles fail, if bolts seize, if gas systems clog, if receivers crack, there are no replacements, no spare parts, no gunsmiths, no official acknowledgement the weapons even exist. But they know one thing with absolute certainty. The men who dropped into Crete with pistols died screaming. The men who carry FG-42s tomorrow might actually survive. A sergeant runs his hand along the rifle's stock, feels the inner geometry, tests the bipod deployment, cycles the bolt, loads a magazine. The weight feels right, balanced, purposeful. He whispers to the man beside him, "If this thing works, we might make it out alive." The other paratrooper doesn't look up. And if it doesn't, silence. Because they both know the answer. If the FG-42 fails, they revert to pistols. Just like Crete. Just like the nightmare that killed 4,000 of their brothers. The mission launches in 6 hours. Sometimes survival depends on a weapon that shouldn't exist. Built in secret, carried in defiance, and tested only when failure means death. The night before the raid, Otto Skorzeny spreads maps across a table in a commandeered villa. Aerial reconnaissance photos show the target, Hotel Campo Imperatore, perched at 2,000 meters on Gran Sasso's plateau. Sheer cliffs on 3 sides, a single winding road guarded at every switchback. Over 200 Italian carabinieri stationed within rifle range. A fortress designed to be impregnable. Skorzeny's plan violates every principle of airborne warfare. 10 DIF's 230 gliders, fragile wood and canvas, will be towed to altitude, then released. They'll crash land directly onto the plateau. No preparatory bombardment. No suppressing fire. No backup plan. If the gliders overshoot by 50 meters, they plunge off the mountain. If they land short, they smash into boulders at 80 miles per hour. If Italian guards have 30 seconds of warning, the paratroopers will be massacred before they exit the wreckage. A sergeant raises his hand. What if they fortify the entrance? What if they have machine gun nests positioned? Skorzeny doesn't answer immediately. He looks at the FG-42 rifles stacked against the wall, dark steel and walnut, illegal and untested. That's what those are for. But he doesn't say the rest, that the rifles have never been fired in combat, that only a few dozen Fallschirmjäger have trained with them, that if they jam, when they jam, there are no spare parts, no armorers, no official acknowledgement they exist. If the FG-42 fails, the paratroopers are left with pistols, just like Crete, just like the slaughter that killed 4,000 men. The Fallschirmjägers stare at the rifles, some with hope, some with doubt, all with the memory of friends who died holding sidearms against rifle fire. But there's a darker truth beneath the mission briefing. The FG-42 isn't just a weapon. It's a symptom of a dying war machine. By 1943, Germany's military is cannibalizing itself. The Heer develops the Sturmgewehr 44 in secret. The Luftwaffe develops the FG-42 in secret. The Waffen-SS hoards resources for its own programs. None share technology. None coordinate production. Each competes for the same shrinking pool of steel, labor, and manufacturing capacity. Allied forces are doing the opposite. The Americans scale up M1 Garand production to millions. The British simplify the Sten until it can be built in bicycle shops. The Soviets flood factories with PPSH-41s, crude, effective, overwhelming. Germany builds masterpieces in hundreds, while its enemies build competence in millions. The FG-42 embodies the contradiction. A weapon so advanced it rewrites infantry doctrine, yet so expensive and complex it can arm only a fraction of the men who need it. The paratroopers don't know they're carrying a metaphor. They just know it's the best rifle any of them has ever held. Even if the war can no longer afford to build it. September 12, 1943, 6 a.m. Engines roar. Tow planes strain against the weight of gliders. Cables stretch taut. Wings flex. The flight path takes them over Rome, still sleeping in pre-dawn darkness. Then northeast, toward the Apennine Mountains. At 7,000 feet, the air thins. Cold bites through flight suits. Ice forms on glider wings, spreading like frost across glass. Inside the cramped fuselages, paratroopers sit in silence. Some check rifles, cycle bolts, load magazines. Others stare at nothing, faces blank with controlled fear. One soldier whispers a prayer. Another grips his FG-42 so tightly his knuckles turn white. They know the statistics. Glider operations have a 40% casualty rate even in ideal conditions. This isn't ideal. This is insane. At 7:05 a.m., the tow planes release. The cables drop away. The engines fade. Silence. No power. No radio. No sound, except wind against canvas and the creak of overstressed frames. The gliders fall in formation. 10 fragile craft carrying 108 men toward a fortress none of them have seen except in photographs. Below, the plateau emerges through morning haze, a barren expanse of rock and alpine grass. The hotel rises at the far end, stark white against gray stone. Beautiful, isolated, deadly. The lead glider approaches fast, too fast. The pilot fights the controls, wind gusts, the glider overshoots. It slams into a boulder field at 70 miles per hour. The fuselage crumples like paper. Wood splinters, canvas tears. Men tumble out, dazed, bleeding, alive. The second glider skids across ice, stopping 50 meters from the hotel entrance. Perfect. The third crashes nose first into rocks. The fourth clips an outcrop and spins. The fifth lands clean but hard. Chaos erupts. Italian guards shout, alarms blare. Carabinieri scramble from barracks, grabbing rifles, sprinting toward defensive positions. And, from the shattered gliders, German paratroopers pour out, legs unsteady, vision swimming from impact. Hands gripping FG-42 rifles that were never supposed to exist. They're 80 meters from a fortress defended by 200 men. They're armed with a weapon built in defiance of orders. They're fighting a mission no one authorized, with equipment no one approved, for a dictator most of them despise. And they're running uphill into rifle fire. One soldier stumbles, gets up, runs. Another checks his FG-42. Bolt forward, magazine seated, safety off, ready. Scorzeni's voice cuts through the chaos over radio. "Suppress the entrance! No, prisoners, move now!" The paratroopers deploy, drop prone, raise rifles, and in that moment, cold rock beneath them, thin air burning their lungs, adrenaline drowning thought, they discover whether the FG-42 is a miracle or a coffin. When the impossible becomes the only option, weapons don't save you. Will does. In 7:08 a.m., 3 minutes after landing, Fallschirmjägers sprint uphill, legs burn, lungs scream in thin air. Altitude steals breath. Rocks turn ankles. The hotel entrance looms 80 meters away. Carabinieri guards, maybe 30, deploy behind stone walls and parked vehicles. Rifles crack. Bullets snap past. Dust kicks up. Stone chips fly. A sergeant, Hauptmann Languth, drops prone, deploys his FG-42 bipod, thumbs the fire selector to semi-automatic. He breathes, aims through the ZF-4 scope. Crosshairs settle on a distant figure. Squeezes. Crack. A guard 200 meters out falls. The FG-42's 7.92mm round punches through stone cover and uniform. No submachine gun in the world makes that shot. Languth shifts, finds another target, fires again. Another guard drops. Beside him, 3 paratroopers switch to full automatic. They hose the hotel's ground floor windows. Glass shatters, wood splinters. The sound is deafening, sharp, metallic, relentless. The FG-42's rate of fire is 900 rounds per minute. Faster than an MG-34. Faster than anything a rifle should be. Brass casings pour out, glinting in morning light. They're still hot when they hit frozen ground. Smoke curls from barrels. One paratrooper's rifle seizes, failed to eject. He curses in German, slaps the bolt handle hard, clears the jam, keeps firing. The FG-42 is a precision instrument. Precision demands maintenance. In combat, there's no time for maintenance. Another paratrooper's stock cracks under sustained recoil. The wood splits along the grain. He ignores it, keeps firing. The rifle holds together, barely, but the suppression works. Italian guards can't raise their heads. They can't aim. They can't organize a defense. Every time someone tries to move, FG-42 fire drives them back. Skorzeny and a dozen SS commandos charge the entrance. No resistance. Doors hang open. They storm inside, boots echoing on marble floors. Outside, the Fallschirmjäger maintain fire, controlled bursts. Disciplined. Every trigger pull is deliberate. The FG-42 chews through ammunition. Each 20-round magazine lasts seconds under automatic fire. Paratroopers reload fast, slap fresh magazines in, keep shooting. The rhythm is mechanical, practiced. One guard attempts to flee across the plateau. An FG-42 round catches him mid-stride. He collapses into rocky dirt. Another tries to return fire from a second-floor window. A burst from Languth's rifle rips through the window frame. Wood explodes. Silence follows. By 7:12 a.m., the hotel is secure. 4 minutes. No German casualties. Light Italian resistance. Most guards surrender immediately, hands raised, eyes wide with shock. Inside, Skorzeny finds Mussolini in a second-floor room. The dictator looks smaller than propaganda photos suggest. Stunned, disoriented, unshaven. "Duce," Skorzeny says in Italian. "The Führer sent me." Mussolini stares. His voice shakes. "I knew he would not abandon me." Outside, the Fallschirmjäger hear the confirmation over radio. They glance at each other, exhausted, relieved. Mission accomplished. But the FG-42s tell a different story. Languth inspects his rifle. The barrel is scorching hot, too hot to touch. The gas piston shows carbon scoring. The bolt carrier has stress fractures forming along the rail. Another paratrooper's rifle has jammed 3 times in 4 minutes. He's cleared it each time, but the extractor claw is wearing down, leaving deep gouges in brass casings. A third soldier's stock is cracked clean through. The rifle still fires, but the recoil is brutal without structural support. His shoulder is already bruising purple beneath his uniform. The FG-42 has performed brilliantly, but it's fragile, complex, demanding. In a single engagement under ideal conditions, surprise attack, minimal return fire, short duration, it's devastating. But what about sustained combat? What about mud, snow, months in the field without gunsmiths? The paratroopers don't have time to think about it. A Fieseler Storch, a tiny liaison aircraft meant for reconnaissance, lands on the plateau. It's designed for 2 people maximum. Scorzeni crams Mussolini and himself inside. The pilot protests loudly. "Too much weight. We'll never take off at this altitude." Scorzeni pulls his pistol, points it casually at the instrument panel. "Fly." The Storch's engine roars. It lurches forward, bounces over rocks, lifts, barely. Wings dip. The cliff edge approaches. Then the plane clears it, dropping into open air before gaining altitude. The glider troops are left behind. They'll have to hike down the mountain, then scatter through Italian countryside, evading patrols. But they've done it. Against impossible odds, with an impossible weapon, they've pulled off one of the most daring raids of the war. And in the rubble and brass casings scattered across Gran Sasso, the FG-42 has written its only success story. Victory is measured in seconds. Legacy is measured in decades. Mussolini is returned to German custody. Hitler stages a propaganda victory. Photos of the rescue flood newspapers across the Axis. The Green Devils are celebrated. Medals are distributed. Scorzeni becomes a household name, promoted and paraded before cameras. The FG-42 earns quiet respect, not headlines, respect. Fallschirmjäger units begin receiving limited shipments. By late 1943, roughly 2,000 are in the field. A second production valid, slightly simplified with cheaper components, adds another 5,000 by 1944. Total production across the entire war, approximately 7,000 rifles. But the numbers never grow beyond that. The rifles are hand-built. Each one requires machining time Germany no longer has. Chromium, molybdenum, and skilled labor are diverted to tanks, aircraft, submarines, and the V-2 rocket program. The FG-42's cost per unit, 350 Reichsmarks, makes it a luxury when the Sturmgewehr 44 offers similar versatility for 120 Reichsmarks. By mid-1944, production halts entirely. Factories are bombed. Supply lines collapse. The Reich prioritizes weapons that can be produced quickly and cheaply. Some Fallschirmjäger cling to their FG-42s with near religious devotion. They maintain them obsessively. They scrounge parts from damaged rifles. They hoard ammunition. They treat the weapon like a talisman. Others abandon them for more reliable weapons. The MP-40, the Kar 98K, anything that works when covered in mud. A sergeant writes in his journal in late 1944, "The FG-42 is the finest rifle I have ever fired. It is also the most difficult to keep functioning. In mud, it jams. In sand, it seizes. In winter, the gas system freezes. If I could choose any weapon for a parade ground, I would choose this. For the Eastern Front, I choose the MP-40. By 1945, most FG-42 rifles are lost, destroyed, or captured. Allied soldiers who find them are baffled. The design makes no sense within the context of mass production warfare. Why spend so much on a single rifle? Some are kept as trophies. A few are shipped back to Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland for study. American ordnance officers disassemble them, measure tolerances, test fire them at ranges, study the gas system, the inline stock, the rotating bolt. Their official conclusion: excellent design, impractical manufacturing, interesting concepts worth further study. But they take extensive notes, photographs, technical drawings, because brilliance doesn't need to succeed in its own time to shape the future. In 1945, the United States Army begins developing a new general-purpose machine gun. The goal: replace the aging Browning M1919 with something lighter, faster, and more versatile. Designers study captured German weapons: the MG-42 for its rate of fire, the Sturmgewehr 44 for its versatility, and the FG-42 for its engineering brilliance. They notice the single stock, the gas piston system, the quick-change barrel concept, the balance between firepower and weight. By 1957, the M60 machine gun enters service. It weighs 23 pounds, fires 7.62 by 51 mm NATO, uses an input stock design to manage recoil, employs a gas piston system nearly identical to the FG-42. Veterans of World War II see it and laugh bitterly. That's the German paratrooper rifle. We just made it heavier and called it American. The M60 becomes one of the most iconic American weapons of the Cold War. It fights in Vietnam, Korea, the Gulf. It's mounted on helicopters, jeeps, and riverboats. It becomes synonymous with American infantry power. And its DNA traces directly back to a rifle that fewer than 7,000 men ever carried. The FG-42's influence doesn't stop there. The Soviet AK-47, designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov between 1945 and 1947, borrows the long-stroke gas piston and rotating bolt concepts. Kalashnikov later admits in interviews that he studied captured German rifles extensively, including both the FG-42 and Sturmgewehr 44. The American M16, adopted in the 1960s, uses an in-stock layer to control recoil during automatic fire. Modern assault rifles, from the FN-SCA to the HK-416 to the SARL, owe conceptual debt to a weapon designed in secret, fielded in desperation, and abandoned in defeat. Museums now display FG-42 rifles behind glass in climate-controlled cases. Collectors pay tens of thousands of dollars for them at auctions. Military historians describe them reverently as 20 years ahead of their time. But the men who carried them into Gran Sasso, most are gone now. Their names are footnotes in history books. Their mission is legend. Their weapon is a museum piece behind velvet ropes. And yet, every time a modern soldier shoulders an M60, an M240, or an FN Minimi, they're holding an echo of a rifle built in shadows for a war that couldn't wait. The FG-42 failed to save Germany. It couldn't. No single weapon could. But it simped something more enduring. It proved what was possible. It showed that rifle power, automatic fire, and portability could coexist. It pioneered design principles that define modern infantry weapons. Innovation doesn't ask permission, it simply happens. And history decides what to keep. In war, timing is everything. A weapon can be perfect and still arrive too late. A design can reshape the future and still fail the present. The FG-42 was not defeated by engineering flaws. It was not defeated by enemy fire. It was defeated by economics, by politics, by the grinding reality that brilliance requires resources Germany no longer had. It proved what was possible. It could not prove what was practical. The paratroopers who carried it understood this better than anyone. They knew they held the future in their hands. They also knew the future wouldn't save them. Only the mission mattered. Only the moment mattered. Only the man beside you mattered. And when the gliders crashed into Gran Sasso, when the rifles barked and the guards fell, the FG-42 earned its place in history. Not because it won the war, but because it showed what war could become. Decades later, when American Marines carried M60s through rice paddies in Vietnam, they were carrying an idea born in desperation on Crete and perfected in secrecy in Germany. When Soviet soldiers marched with AK-47s through Eastern Europe, they were carrying lessons learned from captured FG-42s studied in Moscow workshops. When modern soldiers deploy with weapons weighing half what their grandfathers carried, but firing twice as fast, they're benefiting from concepts a handful of German engineers pioneered in defiance of their own leadership. Sometimes, the greatest weapons are the ones that arrive too early to matter and too late to win. History remembers both, the genius and the cost of deploying it when the world isn't ready. The FG-42 failed its war, but it won its legacy. And, in the end, perhaps that's the only victory that endures. If you found this story compelling, explore the hidden engineering marvels and untold human stories that shaped World War II. Subscribe to discover the weapons, tactics, and decisions that changed history forever.